Good morning, everybody. We'll get started in just 1 minute. Okay, good morning. It is 8:03. We will get this show on the road. Welcome, everybody, to Economic Alliance Snohomish County's State of Everett. This is one of our signature events. We're very proud to put this on each year, and we're glad to put it on in the virtual format as required this year, of course. Before we get going too far, I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping here. First of all, a big welcome and thank you to all the elected officials, not the least of which, of course, is Mayor Franklin, who's featured here this morning. But a big thank you and shout out to all of the other elected officials that are joining us this morning as well. We are grateful for your service. We know it's been a challenging past year, and we know the challenges are ever present and continuing on. So we're just particularly glad you could make time for us this morning. To all, this event is being recorded, and the recording will be sent out to attendees after the event. And we'd like to thank our sponsors for helping to make these programs happen. First of all, our presenting sponsor, the Boeing Company. The Boeing Company is a huge sponsor through good times and bad, through everything in Snohomish County, and their sponsorship of community and business events really can't be understated through these challenging times. Our partner sponsor is Herald Media. Thank you, Herald Media. And we have signature sponsors, Classic Country KXA, KRKO Greatest Hits, Everett Community College, and the Snohomish County Public Utilities District. And thank you to our event sponsors as well. This time I'd like to welcome Rich White, the Government Relations Manager with the Boeing Company, to help us open the event and give us a welcome for Mayor Franklin. Rich?
Thanks, Chris, and thank you for having us here and have this opportunity to introduce the mayor. I'd like to give a quick update on Boeing and the company. As I look back and reflect on 2020, I hearken back to that Thomas Paine quote, "These are the times that try men's souls." And I think that that's just sort of emblematic of all of us in terms of the impact that the pandemic has had, both from a business standpoint and from a personal standpoint. As you well know, Boeing has had a presence in the city of Everett since the late 1960s when we came to build the 747 here. But what you might not know is that we also had a presence here during the Second World War, building wire harnesses for B-17s downtown Everett, where the old Herald building currently sits. So a little bit of history and trivia for you. I'd like to pivot now to introduce the mayor. The mayor has been a tremendous asset, I would say, to both the company and the general business community during her term in office. She has been a tremendous leader on our issues as a company and just emblematic of, I think, of her leadership on a regional, statewide, even global basis. But mostly, I would like to just sort of turn it to a personal effect. I consider the mayor, or Cassie, a personal friend and someone who I have over the years just been admired by for her, courageous leadership, her compassion to the community, and her leadership through very trying times. She has shown an utmost amount of agility and leadership as it relates to both the city and its very unique and difficult times it finds it in, as well as the community. And so I find, as an Everett resident, very proud to call both Cassie my friend, as well as mayor. So with that, I'd like to introduce Cassie Franklin, Mayor of Everett.
Thank you, Rich. Really appreciate that warm and kind introduction. As you shared, I know it's been an incredibly rough year for Boeing and that our aerospace industry was hit especially hard in this pandemic. I want to share you and the company have remained a pillar of support for our community. And I am grateful for you and the Boeing Company's leadership and commitment to Everett. So thank you. I also want to thank Economic Alliance of Snohomish County, Chris, Katie, and team. I appreciate your hosting our annual State of Everett. So good morning, everyone. In preparing for today, I found myself reflecting on what a crazy, strange year it's been. More than a year ago, we had the first case of COVID-19 in our nation reported here in Snohomish County. Our first responders, our healthcare workers, were the first to come into contact with this virus. And as the first leaders to face this, the rest of the country was looking to us, learning from us as we came together to build a response to this unknown and deadly disease, doing our best to keep it from spreading too deeply into our community. I remember sitting in this very office, feeling just incredibly overwhelmed and afraid for the health and well-being of our community, and also feeling very unsure of how best to guide our city through this crisis. Those early days were scary. But I also remember the solidarity I felt with so many of you. We didn't always know what to do, when to do it, how best to do it, but we came together with such a strong desire to serve our community, protect our residents, and do our best to keep everyone safe. So I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge what a hellish year has been and express my sincere gratitude to all of you. We couldn't have made it here without the courage, creativity, adaptability, resilience, dedication, and leadership that we have in this community. So I'd like to start with some thank yous. First, to our City Council. You have been my sounding board and co-leaders during these incredibly strange times. Thank you for your leadership. To my fellow Snohomish County leaders, Executive Summers, members of the County Council, and our fellow mayors across Snohomish County. You've also been my support, and Executive Summers, you've had to step up in ways I know you never imagined, and you've done it exceptionally well with a steady calm. To our friends at Snohomish Health District, Dr. Spitter, Sean Fredericks, and the whole staff at the Health District, you've been working 24/7 dealing with this for more than a year now and are a trusted source of information and guidance to keep our community safe. Representative Larson and Del Bene and our colleagues at the federal level, thank you for working hard to advocate for federal support on behalf of our residents. And to our first responders from Everett Fire, Police, Emergency Management, thank you for your care, professionalism, and the efforts you've taken to serve our community through these uncertain times. And our healthcare workers, Providence, Everett Clinic, Kaiser, and throughout the community, you are the true heroes on the front lines of this pandemic. I can only imagine how exhausted you are, and I can't thank you enough for your courage, commitment, and care. And to everyone who's staffing the Emergency Coordination Center around the clock to help us stay on top of the latest science, latest strategies, and help coordinate, educate, care, and now vaccinate the community, thank you. Our local business and community leaders who have worked to support our community when they've needed you most, thank you. I know you've had to switch gears time and time again, and that this pandemic has dealt you a hard blow. Thank you for hanging in there and finding new ways to provide goods and services. To our teachers, our school administrators, our parents, you've had to turn teaching models upside down, revise methods, and teach remotely. And parents, you had to become teachers to ensure our youth and students everywhere had what they needed to succeed. Thank you. And lastly, to our team at the City of Everett, you often have the thankless work of being a public servant. Yet I know your work does not go unnoticed. I appreciate you, and I know the city appreciates you as our residents do as well. Thank you. And please, thank you to anyone I missed. It's an honor and privilege to work with all of you as we help our community through this crisis. Together, you all represent everything I love about Everett and our community. So I want to take a few minutes to talk about my vision for our city and who Everett is. Everett has it all. We are tucked between Puget Sound and the Cascade Mountains, surrounded by gorgeous natural beauty. We are the largest urban center north of Seattle, yet we still have that small town feel. We host a robust advanced manufacturing center, including Boeing and other aerospace support and supply chain companies, and we have a world-class commercial airport at Payne Field. We have an amazing variety of food and entertainment options, as well as retail and other locally owned businesses. And we have first-rate medical facilities and Funko. This is a great city for raising kids with beautiful parks, fantastic education partners such as our Everett and Mukilteo school districts, who have done a remarkable work to provide new learning models to keep our students engaged in learning during these unpredictable times. We also have stellar higher education options with Everett Community College, which was the first college in the state to return to in-person nursing labs, and they're continuing to safely train the next generation of healthcare providers. And of course, there's Washington State University Everett. Go Cougs! While many colleges and universities have seen a decline due to the pandemic, WSU Everett actually increased enrollment. And just a few weeks ago, they launched their new bachelor's degree program in business administration. We're also proud to host Naval Station Everett, who is now home port to 5 destroyers with 3 more coming soon and 2 Coast Guard vessels, along with their crews and families. And we have an active seaport. Earlier this month, I joined the virtual ribbon cutting to celebrate the completion of the modernization of the Port South Terminal. This $57 million maritime infrastructure project will support the next generation of larger vessels and heavier cargoes now arriving at Everett's International Seaport. And in addition to all this, Everett is a relatively affordable place to live and do business. We're big enough to provide unlimited opportunities, yet small and neighborly enough to create a wonderful quality of life. But our community is what makes us really special. Everett's compassion and work ethic make us an authentic city. We don't shy away from dealing with our society's toughest problems, but we work together to tackle them and find solutions. We care about each other, and we want the best for our city. I've always felt like Everett is one of the Northwest's best kept secrets, and too often we're overlooked and definitely underestimated. So this year, I'd like to call it our year. Now is the time to rise up and highlight our strength as a community, showcase our amazing assets and the opportunity we have to grow, expand, and achieve. It's been a tough year, and we're not out of the woods yet. But I also know that together we will get through this pandemic and whatever other issues come our way. It's Everett's time to shine. So traditionally, my State of the City address has included highlights of the previous year with updates on our initiatives and projects. Since last year was anything but traditional, we thought we'd do it a little differently this year. Instead of a lengthy recap of what we've done, I'd like to share a short video our team put together, which highlights 2020 in review. So I'm hoping, Katie, you can cue that up.
Things happen here. Everett, 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 Everett. We got coffee, we got beer. Everett, 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 Everett. We got aerospace engineers. Everett, 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 Everett. Stereo live for your aching ears.
For people to stay home to fight the spread of the coronavirus. Our team coverage continues with Cairo 7's Michael Spears, who's live in Everett. Michael, you just spoke to the mayor about this new directive.
So thank you, Pipa and our team, for producing that video. As the video showed, we've been through a lot. And hopefully you took note of the amazing strength, resilience, and adaptability of our community and our city teams. I remain humbled and impressed and grateful for the way our community has come together and supported each other during the most dark and challenging year of our lifetime. Building on the theme of strength and resilience, I'd like to now lay out my priorities for the year and how I intend to keep on a steady path toward healing and recovery. They fall into the following categories: COVID recovery, good governance, housing for all, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. Clearly, recovering from the pandemic is our top priority, which means first and foremost, making sure our community is healthy. We've been working lockstep with partners at Snohomish County and the Health District and others to advance best practices to keep our community safe. The latest from the Health District shows the rate of new infections is going down, which is encouraging news, but we still have a long ways to go. Right now, making the vaccine available to everyone in the community as soon as possible is our top priority. We are supporting regional efforts for mass vaccination around the county and also helping with plans to establish additional sites here in Everett, which we hope to open soon. Our greatest challenge right now is supply, but together with Executive Summer's leadership, we have been fiercely advocating for more state and federal supplies, and we expect to see more doses coming our way soon. In addition to helping our community get healthy, recovery includes building our economic base and doing what we can to support our local businesses, which have been severely impacted by the pandemic. I'm pleased we've been partnering with the Greater Seattle partners, Snohomish County, the Economic Alliance, and others to focus on economic recovery for our region. In fact, much of our focus this past year has been on launching new programs and initiatives to help, such as Everett for Everett Guide, our Getting to Safe Toolkit, our Streeteries program, and our Everett Cares grants. So far, the city has awarded $1.8 million in 3 rounds of CARES funding to support 140 local businesses and organizations. We'll continue to help them recover any way we can. I also want to see our beautiful downtown, waterfront, central, and South Everett communities bustling with amazing restaurants, shops, businesses, and arts, attracting not only our residents, but people from other cities and counties as well. The next priority is good governance. A core responsibility for every mayor is the everyday business of running a city and running the city responsibly. This includes ensuring Everett remains a safe and welcoming city with a wonderful quality of life for our residents. I'll continue to support the public safety programs we have with our fire, emergency management, and police. These teams not only continue to lead the city's response in the pandemic, but will continue the routine yet essential work to protect and care for our community, fighting fires, solving crimes, and being there for us when we need them most. The business of running a city includes our infrastructure and keeping it in good shape. That means transportation networks, roads, bridges, sidewalks, and our transit system, as well as our utility. We've been working hard during the pandemic to ensure continuity of services and will continue to do so. And good governance also requires us as a city to operate within our means. As many of you already know, the city has struggled with a structural deficit for a long time. This year, I will continue to prioritize putting Everett on a path toward long-term financial sustainability. Last year, I formed a stakeholder committee to explore our fiscal options and advise me and our leadership on ways we can address the city's revenue challenges far into the future. That group found that the city is in a financial crisis, that dramatic action is required to work our way out of this challenge. So this year, it's the time for us to take a hard look at the options before us. Options that won't be easy, but now is the time for us to take that decisive action. Another priority is housing, and this need has only been intensified by the pandemic and its economic toll. I recently issued a housing directive geared at housing for all, which seeks to add more housing at all price points so that everyone who lives and works in Everett can afford a home and access to the great amenities our city has to offer. We have a growing need for shelter as well and are moving forward with new initiatives to expand shelter capacity. And the last priority I'll mention is having a diverse and inclusive city. This past month has brought into sharp focus the need we have as a city and a country to do more and do it now to address inequities. Since taking office, I've issued 2 mayoral directives on diversity and equity and also hired our city's first equity manager. Much work lies ahead, but we are committed to bringing about the changes needed to make our city more inclusive and a place where everyone has opportunities to succeed. Together, we're working toward a vision of Everett that celebrates, honors, and respects our diversity of cultures, experiences, and faiths. So that's a broad overview of my vision and priorities for the year. I know Chris has some questions for me to delve in a bit deeper, but first I have a question for Chris. We've been engaged together in a number of initiatives, Chris, this past year, from working with Greater Seattle Partners or Aerospace Task Force to planning economic recovery. With your work and background, I'm hoping you can share your thoughts on where we are in our recovery.
You bet. Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for leading in this event, in particular, and sharing your vision. It's been great to absorb just all of that content that you just worked us through. Looking forward to this conversation with you to unpack a lot of those initiatives and your vision for Everett. It's just really a great area of focus for this event this morning. Well, I appreciate that. I've enjoyed our relationship for the past 2 or 3 years, and we're going to talk about some of the specifics, but I feel like, Cassie, when you and I have been together, it's been about regional economic development conversations. And as mayor, your leadership requires so much more than that. I almost feel like I've been a little bit of a break from time to time of some of the more serious pressing issues that you have on a day-to-day basis. So happy to talk a little bit about the economy, get a little deeper into what's going on in Everett for those important priorities with you as mayor, and then to try to wrap up on some business notes as well. Where we are in the economy, we're almost a year into this challenge. We hit sort of rock bottom from an employment perspective in April. And economists don't do a very good job of defining what does recovery mean, right? Most economists globally think of we have recovered when we hit a rate of productivity at that rate prior to something happening that led to a recession in the first place. But it does not speak to what it takes to recover and recoup those losses during that time spent. So we've been trying to recover ever since we had to pick ourselves up and dust ourselves off last April with the immediate crises of the pandemic. And we started saying, what can we open and how much can we open? And of course, some industries and some businesses were able to do that in different ways, and some were not whatsoever. There are many jobs that cannot be worked from home. And all those consumer-facing industries that rely on face-to-face contact and interaction, those are still suffering. And you cannot think of a recovery of a business operating at 15 to 25% capacity, for example. So we're still in that grind, but bit by bit, we're trying to adapt and recover. Certainly all the news about the vaccine is critical and helpful, and it won't really hit that tipping point for us as an economy to get back to all those breadth of transactions until that vaccine is distributed at scale, right? So month by month, and I was listening to Dr. Fauci just yesterday to say, okay, now hold off. Just because you have a vaccine doesn't mean you can go back to business as usual. You can still be infected even though you're not getting sick as a result of the vaccine. That was sort of a sobering point when I heard him say that yesterday, because I wanted to think as soon as we have that vaccine, we can go back to interacting with each other. So we're still in this long grind. One of the topics that you and I vehemently agree on is how important Everett is to the regional economy. And that's been fun to talk to you about. My career in this region goes back. I worked at Puget Sound Regional Council in the late 1990s, and I've appreciated the regional point of view. And I've always seen Everett as the northern commerce anchor to the central Puget Sound region. And I love the way Executive Summers talks about Seattle being the southern gateway into Snohomish County. And Everett is the commerce center, and as you mentioned, the biggest urban center just north of Seattle. Everett's so important to Boeing, and vice versa. And that manufacturing base that Boeing provides so important to the state of Washington, to the United States, and Everett is home. But you know what people may not realize is that if you take Boeing employment out of the jobs and housing mix in Everett, Everett's a well-balanced city. So in addition to being a well-balanced city of a mix of different sectors and home to Boeing, it's a super important city. And how we promote Everett and think about Everett for economic development to keep that presence as part of our regional economy is critical. So I'm looking forward to talking more with you about those things and how those initiatives that you mentioned earlier play into economic development. When I talk about economic development, I like to take a holistic view. I like to say you need to be a good place to live first, and then you need to take care of what you got, nurture those businesses and the workforce you have. And when you have your act together on those two foundational fronts, you need to be strategic and go after the things that you want also. But it's those quality of life topics that are important, I think, is the foundation for economic development. So with that as an overview, I'd like to turn it back to you now and ask you a few questions and get into some of the content that I know that we want to feature. As I mentioned, quality of life is so important for economic development, and your work as a leader for the city requires you to address all these things. So what are some of the high-ranking projects and initiatives that you'd like to speak to here this morning to know what's going on in Everett?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I appreciate you giving me a heads up on this question because there's a lot to unpack there. We have so many great things in the works in Everett. So I'll apologize in advance if I give you a very long-winded answer.
That's what we're here for. It's okay, please.
Great. So as I mentioned in my opening remarks, we really want to help raise Everett's profile as an attractive place to do business. So with that in mind, there are 3 areas that, we're pretty excited about. One is kind of helping establish that maker's mindset of Everett, the green economy, and then parks, arts, and placemaking, as you were talking about those quality of life things, Chris. My team and I refer to Everett as the city of makers, with the idea that you can make it in Everett. And that means not only making goods and services, but also being able to make a great life for yourself here for all the reasons that I mentioned at the beginning. So our team is working on an initiative to help tell our story to the world, that Everett is a place you can make it, that if you have an idea or a passion, will help you follow your dreams and grow your business to succeed. So I wanted to share a couple of examples of businesses that have made it here in Everett, and they've been making it for some time. We all know about Boeing and aerospace and our Funko Pops, but folks may not know we're also home to Pocock Racing Shells. They make the finest racing rowboats in the world, and they actually, our team won in the 1936 Olympics in Berlin using one of their boats. Down at the waterfront, Ocean Gate makes state-of-the-art submarines that researchers take to explore the deepest parts of our ocean, and they're currently building a submarine that will take a crew of researchers to the Titanic. And Everett is also honored to be home to Acro Wood, one of the oldest companies in our city. They make incredible machines for the forest products industry, and they've been at it since 1892. So today, they're making their Everett-made machines and selling them on all 7 continents, including Antarctica. So some pretty cool things happening here. And, I can't go without mentioning the port again. They are doing some amazing work. They're a fantastic economic driver for the region, and they're nearing completion on a project that I'm pretty excited about, which is the cleanup and restoration of the Baywood site, which used to be a sawmill. They're removing the contaminated soil and creating new habitat for salmon and other native wildlife, which not only protects the environment, but makes the site ready to become a job center again. So a new light industrial development is expected to break ground this summer, bringing jobs to our waterfront and creating outdoor opportunities for our residents with a new nature trail along the shoreline. I also mentioned the green economy, and what Everett's doing there is pretty exciting. We are proving that we are a great environment for companies to design and develop new green technologies. So I also wanted to highlight a few here. Terra Power, they're developing new carbon-free energy systems and cancer treatments in their Everett lab. Helion Energy just announced it will be building a lab in Southwest Everett, and they believe they can radically transform the fusion energy industry. Soundview Innovation Campus has secured a 40-acre campus in Southwest Everett, and it hopes to bring together innovators in clean tech, aerospace, and life sciences that allow them to develop solutions that will feed our green economy. InFarm is a German startup expanding around the globe, and they produce herbs and greens hydroponically so that it's close to grocery stores, saving much of the transportation costs and environmental impact. Their hub in Everett is now fully operational and is one of the largest vertical farming centers in the region. And just last week, Magnets, a company that builds electric motors to power aircraft, made Everett its new headquarters, consolidating its Redmond headquarters and a research facility in Australia under one roof near Payne Field. And of course, Boeing continues to champion advances in sustainability. Their planes have set and exceeded new standards in fuel efficiency and air travel. And I just wanted to wrap up the question by sharing some of the things we're doing to support parks, arts, and placemaking. Parks have always had a soft spot in my heart, so I love exploring them together with my family and our dog. I'm proud of the opportunities we have here to get outdoors and enjoy nature. So we're going to be working to maintain and expand our beautiful parks in Everett. The new Emma Ewell Park, which will be adjacent to the YMCA, is expected to begin construction this spring. And we're working on a recreational trail around Silver Lake. You know, Silver Lake is one of Everett's best kept secrets, and I would love for more of our residents to be able to enjoy that wonderful amenity. The arts are another part of what makes our city so special. Our economic development and cultural arts teams have joined forces and are doing everything they can to support arts and placemaking. We're currently working to become a certified creative district through the state of Washington, and earning that certification opens up opportunities for new funding and gives us tools we can use to grow and support the creative economy in Everett. We'll also continue to partner with the Downtown Everett Association, who recently gained Main Street community status and has done so much to revitalize downtown and make it such a welcoming place. Even last year, when Everett had to cut our annual flower program due to lost revenue, we were so grateful that the association stepped up and for all they do for our downtown. And lastly, our city is an amazing place for artists and creatives. I want to help ensure that when they choose Everett as their home, this is a wonderful place for them to be successful. We're affordable, we have a creative culture, and we have a ton of ways to get involved and collaborate here as an artist. We recently actually reached out to a few of our artists and asked them why they chose Everett. And I wanted to share what we heard from one local artist, Alex Vincini. He and his wife, Amber, are full-time artists and dream of owning a gallery downtown. Alex shared his love of art, and he said it led him here to a career as an artist, and that the relationships he formed in Everett led to opportunities to focus on his craft and become established within a supportive arts community. So from art to economic opportunity, the green economy, the maker's mindset, we have quite a lot underway in Everett that I'm pretty excited about.
That's really cool. I appreciate all that. And you painted a good picture of the diversity of the local economy and some of the big initiatives underway. And I'll just add to that from my own perspective. You know, I live in Seattle. I've lived here for 27 years. I've raised my kids here. We've loved coming to Silvertips games with the Cub Scouts over the years. I do a lot of work with Snohomish County government, right there in the Bob Drewell area. The building's named after him. It's just a great commerce center for that part of the region. Downtown, when you walk into downtown Everett, you look around and you say, okay, I get it. Great bones, old school Main Street identity. There's so much potential to build on with great assets always popping up. Adding Funko into downtown, as you mentioned a couple of times, has been really cool.
And
So
don't Funko Stadium, right? Yeah.
What's that? Sorry.
And not to forget the Aqua Sox in our Funko.
Absolutely. No, I've had a couple of hot dogs again with the Cub Scouts there over the years. Just a great way to enter the city. Lots of cool things happening in downtown. New hotels, other things popping up there as well, right? So we get through the pandemic to get people back on the streets in a more consumer environment. Lots to be had there in Everett. Well, let's switch to some of the other parts of your leadership that are required as mayor in Everett. There's some tough stuff across the country that we are dealing with as a nation and as a region, as a state, and in Everett, as the more urban, as the biggest urban center north of Seattle, you tend to have to take on your greater share of urban challenges in Everett as well. Housing and affordability and homelessness in particular is a challenge in Everett, probably at a greater scale than elsewhere in Snohomish County, given that urbanicity that I spoke to there. I know the crises that require some initiatives that you and your colleagues are underway, it calls for some creativity and some assertiveness. Why don't you share with us what's going on and what you're doing as mayor to help to address some of those challenges?
Sure. You know, like communities everywhere, Everett has housing challenges. We don't have enough housing. We don't have enough housing at all price points. And we certainly have too many people that are living without a home. So when you think about this issue, I want to start with what we need to do for those experiencing homelessness. It's a challenging and complicated issue, and it's an issue that often divides our community. I hear from people who think we're not doing enough. I also hear from those who think we're doing more than our fair share, and it isn't the job of government to do all this work. It's a difficult issue. It's not easy to solve. So as a city, we simply don't have the resources or expertise to build and manage shelters and establish and run all the necessary support programs. We can, however, work closely with our partner organizations who are the experts in providing services that can best help those experiencing homelessness. I know I'll miss some, but I do want to thank our partners at the Everett Gospel Mission, Catholic Community Services, Cocoon House, Housing Hope, YWCA, DVS, Salvation Army, Interfaith, and so many more nonprofit and faith-based leaders. I just want to thank them for all they do to support those in needs in our community. Last year, I announced I'd be forming the Homeless Student Task Force under the co-leadership of Joe Alonzo from Cocoon House and Dr. Joyce Stewart, former educator. The task force is underway, and I look forward to getting their recommendations on how we as a community can achieve better outcomes for our homeless students in the city. But we're also working to pilot a project for temporary shelter, and it's using Pallet Shelters. We hope to work with an Everett-based company called Pallet. I hope you saw them. They were recently highlighted in the Herald. And our goal is to procure low-cost, easy-to-assemble portable pallets. Something I especially appreciate about the company is that they hire and invest in people who themselves have experienced homelessness, addiction, or incarceration. So we look forward to working with them directly and to help Everett residents gain stability and just the dignity of having a home. Also, to help those struggling this past year in the pandemic, we administered $800,000 in CARES Act funding for rental assistance and housing stability. And we're currently in the process of adding capacity to our community outreach team to bring more social workers on board embedded in our police department. These teams go out and respond to the community members who are struggling and help connect them to services. So addressing homelessness is big, but I also want to share some of the work that we're doing to address the issue of more available housing at all price points. This shortage that we have affects people at all income levels, and it's only become more acute this past year. We have many people who haven't been able to make rent or mortgage payments. Incomes have not kept pace with the rising cost of housing, and many in our community cannot afford to buy a home. So I work closely with mayors across the country on this issue, and I'm part of the mayors and CEOs for U.S. housing investment, and together we advocate for housing resources at the federal level. Last month, I issued a new housing directive which focuses on affordable housing for all. I want everyone who goes to school in Everett or works in Everett to be able to live in Everett. So some of the ways that we're working towards more housing is through our Rethink housing initiative that we started just last year. We've begun outreach and engagement with the community to really hear about the housing needs, concerns, and priorities. We launched a series of virtual community forum and chat sessions, and the last one featured former Governor Gregoire. She led an excellent conversation speaking on the loss of options for middle income residents and how this is forcing people like our teachers, our grocery store clerks, our healthcare workers, our construction workers, our first responders out of our community. These workers are the heart and soul of our community. And so when they get priced out of the city that they work in, it affects all of us. So an important part of our housing plan will be prioritizing strategies that make more options available for those middle income workers. I hope you'll pay attention. We have a bunch of forums and community conversations scheduled, and altogether this outreach process will help inform the development of a citywide housing action plan that will include strategies the city should undertake to address this issue. We're working to ensure Everett is an attractive place for investors to develop housing and offering a mix of incentives, development-friendly housing policies, and placemaking efforts that enhances that return on investment. There's actually quite a bit of development happening in Everett and a lot going on behind the scenes at times. So I look forward to completing our housing action plan and sharing it community-wide. Thanks, Chris.
Of course, it's a lot going on. It's a big challenge. Sounds like you're doing a lot of different things to approach it from a lot of different angles, and that's really important. I appreciate the comment on the different segments of housing, because there aren't one-size-fits-all strategies that address people who experience homeless and middle wage housing. It's got to be a diverse approach, and it sounds like you've got a lot of good things underway to help address those challenges. Well, you mentioned equity in your opening remarks. I'm glad you did. Thank you. Equally important for any community development is for neighborhoods and cities to feel welcoming and safe and to provide a sense of community. 2020 was a tough year for those basic needs. And somehow in America, we've managed to make the notion of being safe and public safety to be a politicized issue and to make it more challenging for political discourse. You and I have been in situations and calls where you've dealt with some incredibly difficult things behind the scenes. So we're in a phase now that sounds very challenging to me, where you have to rethink policing and how a local police force can show up for good in their community. Tell us how you're juggling those challenges and any initiatives underway in Everett to help move the community forward.
Sure. You know, this is a tough one. Our country is in a difficult place. What we experienced earlier this month with the insurrection against our nation's capital, only heightened the extreme division we feel as a nation and the inequities embedded in our society. So inequities and injustice in our country and our community, they were especially apparent this past year, as you shared, and with a series of police-related shootings and violence occurring across the country, which sparked, of course, the Black Lives Matter demonstrations and calls for police reform. So we began our work on equity and inclusion when I first took office, but this past year demonstrated how urgently we need to do more. A lot of the unrest in our community and across the nation is focused on police, as you know, so I'd like to start there. First, our police chief and I are committed to continuous improvement. The reforms we make are not to check boxes, but to truly bring about positive change and be an example for best practices in community policing. I'm truly grateful for Chief Templeman's leadership and proud of the caliber of officers that we recruit to Everett. As a city that is committed to progressive police policies, we, like all of you, were devastated as we watched violent acts happening in other parts of the country. That's why our commitment towards continuous improvement is so important. We continue to take action and work to stay ahead of the curve in terms of policies, practices, and performance. I believe Everett has one of the best trained police teams in the state. Every one of our officers receives implicit bias training, as well as 40 hours of crisis intervention de-escalation training. And starting last month, officers are receiving 24 hours of training in patrol tactics, which includes lessons in de-escalation, active intervention, emergency first aid, and more. And starting this year, we are just one of 2 agencies in the state selected to participate in a program for active bystandership, preparing officers to intervene and prevent misconduct and mistakes while promoting officer wellness and creating a culture of peer intervention. Also this year, the Police Chiefs Community Advisory Board is reviewing community complaints, internal investigations involving allegations of bias-based policing, excessive force, and unlawful search or seizure. And the board will review changes to policies associated with bias and force. Also this year, we'll be expanding the body-worn camera program we piloted. So once implemented, our department will be the only law enforcement agency in the county with full deployment of body-worn cameras program for our officers. Statewide, there's a lot of interest in creating positive police reforms, and there's a number of bills being introduced in Olympia that we should pay attention to. Some could be good with some amendments, others have a pretty negative impact. So I encourage all of us as a business community to weigh in on what's being proposed and use our voices to help shape the outcomes that we all know are necessary to better protect our communities. The other issue I want to touch on is equity. What I just discussed is kind of how we're working to advance reform and address bias in our police department, but it's important we work citywide to promote equity and inclusion in Everett. So as I mentioned earlier, we have 2 directives guiding the work. The directives led to a lot of internal work, including changes to our recruitment and hiring processes and the creation of a new youth advisory board in addition to our diversity board. Our goal is for both our workforce and our city boards and commissions to better reflect and represent the diverse community we serve. We're working to foster engagement with our Black, Indigenous, and other communities of color and marginalized groups and create a culture of anti-racism in the city of Everett. This includes expanding training, addressing inequities and bias in city systems, policies, and data. And I just want to wrap up by saying how important this work is. Undoing decades of racism and bias in government systems is a big task. So we as a city will focus on what's within our control and influence. I'm looking forward to coming together as a community to identify these challenges and barriers, build relationships and trusts, and achieve equitable outcomes and opportunities for everyone in our city.
Thank you. Thanks for your leadership on all those fronts. Well, I'm keeping an eye on the time here, and I'd like to turn it back a little bit to the economy and the business audience that Economic Alliance represents. A couple of months ago, you and I, along with Executive Summers, had the opportunity to go meet with Boeing Commercial Airlines CEO Stan Deal. I was privileged to tag along with the 2 of you with that meeting. It struck me, Cassie, how grateful he was that you and Dave were there to show support and empathy for the challenges the company faces. I'd like you to say more why you think that was so important to Stan in that regard, and you as mayor. And it doesn't have to be about Boeing, but think more broadly about the political leadership and engagement with the business community. It was just, like I said, a really impactful experience to talk about how that public-private partnership is critical to make businesses work. So maybe you can expand on that from your point of view as mayor.
Sure. Of course. You know, Boeing is an incredible partner, and as you shared in your comments too, a really important part of our city, our state, our country. You know, I often share there isn't a resident or family in our city that isn't somehow connected to Boeing and aerospace. And as we all know, Boeing has had to face a lot of challenges this past year. I think it's always easy to praise our friends and allies when times are good. But demonstrating that support and commitment to companies like Boeing when things are not going so well is critical. Boeing employs thousands of our residents and contributes tens of thousands of dollars to our important community programs. But as you said, it's not just about Boeing. Larger companies like Boeing provide that backbone for all of our small and mid-sized companies to grow in the community. I think we all have a heart for those small businesses, but those small businesses wouldn't exist without the employees and the companies that are the larger businesses that are feeding the region. So when large companies like Boeing thrive, our region thrives. And when they struggle, it affects all of us. So some of Boeing's challenges still persist, but I want to share with the community that I have so much optimism for our future together. Everett is the aerospace capital of the world. We have experienced challenges in the past, and we will certainly have obstacles to overcome into the future. But I know that as we move forward, we're going to do what we've always done. We will persist, we will innovate, we will support one another, and together we will continue to achieve the extraordinary. It is that shared hope that I have and confidence in each other that make us such a strong, resilient community, and one that I'm truly proud to be a part of.
Thank you. That engagement comes through with our collaboration for EASC. I think we have a couple minutes left for our time, so if you'll allow me to either revisit or to reframe a couple things that I know are near and dear to your heart, and how we work on things together. You've been a helpful part at Economic Alliance to do a new recruitment of a new CEO, Gary Clark. He's coming in about a month or so. You were quite supportive of that process, and we're excited about a new leader, a permanent leader, to come in and lead the business community with one voice at Economic Alliance. What would you like to see the Alliance do more of? What are the business supports that we can do to help you and help businesses and workers in Everett?
Well, first, I am so excited about our new CEO. Chris, you've been wonderful, but I know you're the interim. This is nothing against you, Chris. You're fantastic, but Gary is going to be an amazing asset to our region, and amazing leader. I can't wait to work side by side with him on our goals for this community. I think what we need is really that leadership to focus on economic recovery, an organization that is really there for our business community. And when, our business community is also our families, right? So the business community are the families and residents of our communities, because they live in this community as well. And so somebody that is listening to them, advocating on their behalf, bringing us together as a community so that we can really become the North Star of the region that we all know we are. That we have that voice, whether it's in advocacy in Olympia as we're looking at things that are coming forward, or that leadership to support these businesses, because it's going to be a while before things before we're out of these woods. And so I look forward to Gary. He's got this background in rural economic development, but he's used to working in smaller communities. And I think he's got the passion and hunger that we need to drive us forward. So it's going to be exciting to work with him.
Yeah, cool. Thank you for that. And we're super grateful for your collaboration to get us to that point over the past few months as well. EASC serves, as you well know, also as having merged in chambers of commerce in years gone by. Everett doesn't have a full-blown chamber of commerce. EASC serves that role, so certainly it's in the organization's mission to be supportive of Everett businesses in that way. We have a broad number of small businesses from Everett that are our membership that we wish to serve through the numerous events, and so we're hopeful we can continue to add value towards the Everett economy in that regard.
Absolutely.
In just a minute, I'm going to say thank you to our sponsors and give a look ahead for more events at EASC. But please, Mayor, I'd like to give you an opportunity to put a bow on this and with any closing remarks that you might have.
Well, sure. First, thank you, Chris, for having me and hosting us again. I really enjoyed our conversation. I just want to close by saying, I know we're still in a difficult place. We're facing the most devastating public health crisis of our lifetime and still ongoing political strife and uncertainty. But I really believe in us. I believe in the city, in our community. And I believe that now more than ever, it's a time for us to lift each other up with that sense of kindness, compassion, and tolerance. We're stronger and at our best when we're working together. And as I said at the beginning, it's Everett's time to shine. So again, thank you to Chris and Katie and everyone at the Economic Alliance. And thank you to everyone who tuned in and is listening. Please be safe and be well.
Thank you, Mayor. Feel free to call on us anytime we can do to help you advance your vision. We appreciate your leadership. With that, I want to say thank you to the Mayor and her whole team that put this program together. We at the Economic Alliance are looking forward to some coffee chats that are coming up as well. Every Tuesday morning, we have that. We have a couple coming up with some interesting business remarks about the cannabis business, for example, a really dynamic industry in Washington State that has an economic impact across the region. I want to say thank you again to our sponsors, the presenting sponsor of the Boeing Company, our partner sponsor, Herald Media, our signature sponsors, Classic Country KXA, KRKO Greatest Hits, Everett Community College, and Snohomish County PUD. And of course, our event sponsors as well, which I think Katie's going to put on the screen there, Alaska Airlines, Coastal Community Bank, charitable contributions from the Tulalip tribes. Thank you so much for your support. We appreciate all of you joining us today. I hope to see you in our Coffee Chat series every Tuesday. Our next signature event is the Economic Forecast Conference on February 25th. We have a diverse array of speakers that day. It's going to be real fun. I don't want to get in front of us to promote that event too much yet, but I hope that's on your calendars. Mayor, thank you again for joining us. Thanks for this great event. And thank you, Katie, for putting it on. Everyone be safe and have a good day.